Hi, I'm Leanne Scholler. I'm an artist, a writer, and today I'm going to share with you the behind the scenes of creating the Lapbook that is the second book of the Mordred Chronicles, called A River Trembles. Hi, I'm just editing this video and I realized that I don't tell you about all of the making of the Lapbook. There are two parts before this one. There's part one, making of a Sea Dragon's Diary, and then part two, which is making Jasper's Grail Diary. And here we are, part three, putting it all together. Let's take a look. I'm going to take you into behind the scenes of how I made this Lapbook to contain the contents of book two. As you will soon see as I work through this with you, not all of it is text, some of it is illustrations and that kind of thing. First of all, full credit to Nick the Booksmith. Would not have been able to do this without her multiple playlists of videos on Lapbooks. I'm going to link to her below. Just go to her playlist, find Lapbooks. She goes into every single detail. I also took inspiration from a whole bunch of other people. In fact, I have a Research for Project Starfish playlist, which contains some research for the Dollhouse rebuild, and mostly how to do these Lapbook hidden journaling styles. So let's dive in. I think Jill or Gail Carr was another person who inspired me for this. So this is a clasp that I picked up somewhere from something. I suspect it's meant for a purse or a jewelry box. I will say measure 3 times, whichever side you do second, and then put it on together like this, and then... Okay, so the covers are from, what's his name? They're from Dan Brown. I have just painted it with a bunch of different acrylic inks. The covers were like a really dark navy blue. That was boring. So I've done a mix of muted turquoise, sepia, and deep violet in the Liquitex inks, except for the one that's, I think, Daler Rowney. And then I've covered it with adhesive book cloth for the spines, just to make everything a little bit stronger. And on the other side, I had to make a whole new spine. Now, I've seen a lot of very beautifully decorated Lapbooks with lace, and I thought about running a couple of pieces just down here. But it's a very utilitarian product. This is a Lapbook meant for a researcher. Her name, of course I've given her a name, is Miss Juliana Davies. And she is researching the history of the Dragai Moor. And so everything in here is involved with book 2 plus some bonus material. I have to say, it was so cool. I took this up to my husband to show him when I finally finished it. And he's like, "Where did you buy that?" And I'm like, "I made it." Anyway, okay, let's open this up. The lock is a bit funky woo, because maybe I should have measured 4 times. I just covered the inside. The back covers. So this is marbled paper from Venice, because I decided partway through this, that's where the Dragai Moor Embassy is located, in Venice, okay? So I'm going to move from left to right. It's going to require a lot of moving because it's big. And there's another flap on the end here. So I'm going to move this over. I do not remember where I saw this idea of putting a book sliding into the slot here. I've seen plenty of hidden pockets that are like this. Nick the Booksmith demonstrates a hidden pocket like that, and she tucked things into it. I tucked a whole book. This day book is from a kit. I think it's My Porch Prints. I will link to who it exactly is here. So it's her papers, like this is her paper, this is her paper. I've added some lace. I added some tabs here. These are from Sticky. So there are pages of stuff made up on that. I didn't want to spoil too much, so I've left it. And it's pretty empty. This is my paper. This is my paper. That's my paper. That's my paper. But the pretty colored stuff is all from the kit. I didn't use everything in the kit, but I love this cover so much. It had to happen. So that lives in there. Gal Kerr was the one who pointed out you can make a little box out of cardstock and stick a pen in it. So that's what I've done there. So we have a flap, and I've just attached that with like a pretty paper hinge. And inside that flap, I'm going to have to move this over. I have a pocket. I didn't buy a hole punch until late in the game, but I did have a punch, and so the pockets all have these serrated edges. And then this is Juliana's embassy pass that I made up. I made up the took from Dover Images the crest, and then made up a card, printed it out. It was a little bigger than I planned, but that's okay. This is a vintage cotton lace insert. I have attached some embroidery ribbon here, which is difficult to close. A vintage button from the stash. I can't remember if this is from my grandmother's button box or my mother-in-law's button box. Probably my mother-in-law, but I don't know for sure. It's got a plain inside here. I could have decorated the crap out of that, but I didn't. But I did edge this with lace. And the inside, we have a book. I made this book from scratch. So it's decorated in the style that I used in Adethea's first journal. Inked every single edge with distress ink, old paper is distress ink, and I've done some stenciling. Also, I think it's distress ink. Yes, it's also distress ink. Added it to the cover, and this is the original cover. I just put some blue on it. And yeah, bound it. While it was still just the book block, I decorated it. I love this cover so much, I didn't want to cover up any of it, but I did have to do a bit here and here. Now, yes, and there's a ribbon. The best ribbon for this choice? No, but it is themed colored, so there we go. I do a full, very quick flip through of this in character on my Substack. So that is that. Okay, just move everybody over, all the way over. All right, so I have another envelope here. It's, you can see that like so. I made a little tuck for a small notebook, which I really chopped up to get into the size of the folder that I made. That was not my best plan, but anyway. And I made it look tattered because I'm like, this is where she writes notes and she tears them off once she's done. So we have meeting at the embassy 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And again, this is another one of these. Wait, this might be the first one of these. I have 2 of these. The top flap just has a little picture of a candle in the window, which is like a motif in book 2. And inside is a journal. Now this journal may get its own video. I'll see how much actually. But basically this is Henry Jones's Grail Diary from Indiana Jones and the Holy Grail. I bought a really cheap, nasty copy off Amazon. It was so bad, nothing in here is in order. And I don't know where they got this text from, but some of it, I'm wondering if it was been lifted from somebody on the internet. So I'm not proud of that particularly. But I went in and added more pictures. I actually pulled out one of the signatures, and down here I have I've written extra stuff in. Made everything look old with that distress ink. So yeah, so I've kept a couple, 2. None. I kept one of the inserts that was in the original diary, the Grail Diary, because the rest of it was very, very heavily current day, well, the 1939s of Indiana Jones. But this is all history, so I thought this would be like a useful illustrative purpose of this is Jasper's Grail Diary. He has spent his entire adult life to date looking for it. He's taken a lot of notes. So that's what that is. And in there is some actual text that's in book 2. And there's text also that I will use in book 3. Alright, I'm going to move this over one more because this flap opens out. I've just covered the spines with scrapbook paper just to cover up the backs of the brads from the attachments. And I will say, I really went by the, I think it was the Gail Kerr method of making all the bits and then making everything else to go together. This spine had been in place. Putting on the clasp would have been really, really difficult. It was already difficult. It was even more difficult by the thing. Okay, so I have a pocket here. It holds a little library card. This drawing book came out of a sticky subscription. I get the vintage sticky subscription, which you can skip as often as you like. I did a couple of sketches in it because I have been to Venice, so these are from my Venice photos. And just some quick color pencil sketches. And then I added a sketch that's a dragon scale from the Jogai Moore book. This is paper from Venice. And then I made this fold out. So we have a bit more. There we go. So you have a pocket here, just a vellum pocket. And I print out a map. I bought this map digitally on Etsy. And I just stained the back of it to make it look oldish. And it just folds in like there. I was hiding it all a bit plain, so I've added like flowers. This is from PET tape. And I've got a bit of fussy string. It's really fussy string. And this is 2 flaps. So let me do bottom flap first. Bottom flap actually lifts everything up and moves it up. Bottom flap has no pockets. It looks like it might have a pocket, but there isn't. And it's the same paper as on there. Okay. The next thing I did was I had bunch of letters. I tied them up with seam binding. I've glued the seam binding down so I can take all these out. Oh, I didn't. I used double-sided tape to glue that down. So now you can see a bit more of the background, which didn't stick down as well as I thought it did. And then these are like old letters. I got these on Etsy, and then I just folded them. The backs didn't print quite perfectly, so I did some sketching on the other side, like you can notice, but yeah. So that's these. Oh, now I've got to get it back in. This also is another fake letter that I've just folded up, and then this too is like, this is from Tim Holtz. So I just stacked those. And this is one I actually made. Can never remember how to open it. Oh, there it is. I have a tutorial in my playlist for researching on how to fold a letter Regency style. I'll link to that in the description below. And I wrote this letter. It's a letter of introduction. For our, how did I do that? Oh, this way. Letter of introduction for our little researcher whose Lapbook this is. So we have those, and I think it goes that way. So 3 purely decorative letters, with the idea being that one of them is a letter of introduction, because that's what people did back then. I'm going to do these one at a time. This is the hardest one, it's the widest. And I just don't want to do that knot again. What can I tell you? And the last one. I have slid here so you can see that it's a letter, and we just crucially cover the ear. Here I've stuck in an accordion thing. These lovely ladies came from an Etsy download. I will link to her below as well. Probably broke my rule of not using AI generated images, because these have to be, they all seem to have the right number of fingers. So I'm going to say that they started that way and then someone edited them to make them look real. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep. 2, 3, 4. They have the right number of fingers. That's how I look for AI these days. And so I just made a pretty little folder out of some pretty paper. And it has details about the ladies in waiting who work at the embassy. Well, yes, and they're both Dragomore and human. I decided not to put names in here. I may go back and change that in the future. Oh, wait, this is the one that I do with shorter. May go back and do that in future books, especially when we hit like book 4. But as I don't know what that's going to look like yet, I left it blank. And then the top flap, which I haven't shown you, it's one of those little origami things. You're supposed to have this glued to the map below, but I made the map bigger and then decided to fold it this way. And then so you just pull it out like so. I'd have to move this over. Like so, and then there's a fold behind. So you get to see this is a map of Kaer Morgana, the underwater city that I made up. So we have the palace. This is where the sauna, Springhouse is. This is like the royal quarter. It is approximately a quarter, more like a third. So yeah, that is, get back in there, get back. Fold, 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 fold. And there was a tutorial that I found on this on YouTube. I will link to that specifically below, so you don't have to go through my entire list of videos that I saved that I may or may not have used. There's a lot of inspiration in there. If you're so inclined to do, I would start with Nick the Booksmith. Oh no, I'm way off camera, but this will just have to. I recommend starting with Nick the Booksmith and then looking at what other people have done, because some came up with some really amazing ideas. This will not be my last Lapbook, so I know I'll be doing something similar again with the next edition. I just put a little paper thing here to hold this flap down, which, you know, and this is a sticky envelope from one of their advent calendars, and I just have some text in there. Not going to spoil that. Again, with the Venice theme, here's like a colour postcard. Were colour postcards invented in 1825? No, but we can pretend it's like a painting or something. And then I have this big gusseted pocket, which is big because I screwed up the size and had to figure out how to fit this on a flap that wasn't bigger than the book itself. And I just printed out another source, the profit source, and I wrote it as a question and answer format, so it would fit in this book. And then I just stapled the top and put some book tape over the top of that to make it look like it's a notebook. As my husband pointed out, though, the writing is upside down because I was not that clever, but that's okay. Okay, so that is, oh, sorry, I have to move this in. And that is it for the Lapbook. If you want to see a more detailed look with me in character, you need to head over to my Substack for that, because I might make it public here, but then I have to do additional welcomes and farewells and stuff. So this is a Lapbook. Isn't it cool? It just barely gets together. So yes. So I'm going to give this to past me of half an hour ago and sign us out. I hope you enjoyed this. If you have any questions, like ask me below. I will probably direct you to the relevant video that I saw on YouTube. But I'm quite proud of what I've made here. If you're interested in seeing more about the Mordred Chronicles or any of my other artistic endeavors, please definitely subscribe, and maybe even turn on that notifications bell if that dinging doesn't bug you during the day. I only post every now and then on YouTube at the moment, but when I do, it is usually about art journaling, my creative practice, or indeed the behind the scenes of the Mordred Chronicles. So book 2 is either having just launched or will launch at the end of August. I'll put the date here. Book 3 is already in the works. So for book 3, I'm taking an old manuscript of mine that was a Golden Heart finalist, and we're bringing in the new characters from the Mordred Chronicles and having a grand old adventure. That's the plan. Again, thank you for watching, and have a great dragony day.